Once again, when it comes to war, Congress has found the money. Yes, both the House and the Senate passed the National Defense Authorization Act. Once again, this is 63 straight years that they have successfully passed what they will argue keeps us safer, and what progressives and people who want things like universal health care, paid family leave will say, no, it absolutely doesn't. And of course, no one asked how they found the money. Now, Republicans are also pissed about the NDAA, certain Republicans, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about how these votes came down, what was in this NDAA specifically. The House vote came down to 310 in favor, 118 against, 87 for in the Senate and 13 against. Those who voted against in the Senate, notably Josh Hawley, Bernie Sanders, JD Vance, Elizabeth Warren. So again, the strange bedfellows on either side. And again, we'll get into those reasons. In the House of Reps, the entire squad voted against this NDA, including Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal, Ken Buck, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Matt Gaetz. This is, of course, giving $886 billion. That is a record number of money to our defense systems, a department, and the Pentagon, even though the Pentagon, just this November, we learned, they failed their audit for a 6th year in a row. Here's just a cute little headline from Reuters reminding us of that. So yeah, we just dump money in there. Somehow we find the money, and then no accounting for. Now, what's in this bill specifically? There's a few things that made it in and things that didn't that we'll get to in a bit, but it increases the national security budget by 3%, which is not a lot, but considering it's on the backs of other unprecedented bills, NDAs, it's again still an increase. It gives a 5.2% raise to service members. It calls to strengthen military training programs with Taiwan. So a little bit of an FU or just sort of more anti-China aggression. It creates a nuclear fuel security program that promotes uranium-powered fission reactors. So I guess we're leaning into nuclear power. And this is fun, extends warrantless wiretapping via the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Again, this is the mass sweeping of metadata. This is the ability to tap into any American's phones without their knowledge, without getting a warrant. And that extension is just for 4 months. But according to, this is Common Dreams, who sort of broke it down, that 4-month extension of that Section 702 of FISA that senators approved Wednesday would in effect likely become a 16-month extension, given that the US government is expected to use the 4 months to secure a 1-year extension from the FISA court. So on and on and on it goes. Again, this is the legacy of the war on terror. This is the legacy of 9/11 and so on and so forth. There was some efforts to push back against that warrantless wiretapping. Pramila Jayapal, head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, did that, urging senators and legislators not to include 702. There's more I wanted to get into specifically when it comes to funding for Israel and then the right's reaction. But Cenk, I just wanted your sort of, here we go again. We found money for war in the middle of 2+ wars.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different issues here. So number one, the Pentagon cannot pass an audit. So every year that they've been audited, they failed. And they say that they can't find approximately half the money that we appropriate to them. So this one's very easy. If I sent, look, I run TYT. If we had a contract with an outside party and we sent them a ton of money, I mean, 800 and what? $886 billion. If I send somebody an $886 check and I said, where is it? They say, oh, I don't know where half of it is. I'd be like, no, that's not a thing. And we don't do another deal if you say, I lost half the money and I don't know where it is. No one in their right mind would ever do a deal like that again. But yet every year, Congress is like, yeah, sure, go take it. God knows where the 400 some odd billion went. So no, until they pass an audit, I would take out half the money, the half that they can't find. Okay, once you find the money, then I'll send the rest to you. So that's point one. It's inarguable. Nevertheless, 2/3 of Congress rushes over right away. Point two is the point that Francesca is making. So don't ever tell us that we can't afford anything, because that's literally not true. The correct way that they should be saying it, including the cable news anchors, is, do you think this is more important than stockpiling weapons we never use or send to our allies to commit war crimes. And I'm not just talking about Israel, I'm also talking about Saudi Arabia and other allies that we've sent weapons to that they use for war crimes. So for the average American, Republican or Democrat, that's a super easy question. Do you want education, healthcare, et cetera for your kids? Or do you want to spend more money bombing innocent civilians abroad? This is a hard question, but for Congress, for the deeply, deeply corrupt politicians in Washington, it's a super easy question in the opposite direction. They're like, of course you don't have money for your kids or your health care or anything else you want in your life. No, all of our money, a giant, unbelievable, record-breaking amount going to defense when we never even do defense. All we do is offense. All we do is start aggressive wars. So,
can I build on that, Cenk?
Yeah.
Because I think that it's even worse because you know how many times the American people get audited, get their finances surveilled and poured through to see if they qualify for Medicaid, to see if they qualify for food assistance, and if they make $1 more, they're off of it. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about priorities of this nation. You absolutely have the power to audit people. You absolutely have the power to hold them accountable. It's just when it comes to people in this country going hungry or needing a little bit of food assistance and not the Pentagon.
Yeah, so and then finally onto the warrantless wiretapping, et cetera, the Section 702. So look, if you don't hold the powerful accountable, they not only do more law breaking, but they then take the law breaking and make it legal. So one of our issues with Barack Obama was, hey, you've got to hold George Bush and Dick Cheney accountable for both torture, which is not just against international law, but against US law, but also on the warrantless wiretapping, which was deeply, ridiculously illegal. And instead of holding them accountable, what we did was, oh, well, let's just make it legal so that we could just totally take your private information, whatever the hell we want, and we'll call it national security. Okay, so it's an outrage in every conceivable way, and no one in Washington thinks it's even remotely outrageous. I shouldn't say no one, you see the vote, right? And thank you to all the brave people who voted against this monstrosity, right? But the media and an overwhelming majority of politicians in DC go, yeah, of course we're not gonna give you guys, the American people, anything at all. But the defense contractors that fund all of our campaigns, well, we have an endless piggy bank. Go ahead and rob the American people blind.
I want to get to one more aspect of what was just passed, and then we'll talk about why Republicans are upset about it and why even mainstream media is framing this as sort of like a cut against the far right. I would argue it is not. But one thing that was extended in this NDA was basically unlimited access for Israel to precision-guided missiles that are basically in a massive stockpile. And this was reported in these times by Women for Weapons Trade Transparency, because this new NDA continues what was passed in 2021. It's called Section 1275 of the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act, and it allows a limitless transfer of PGMs, again, precision-guided missiles, from US reserve stocks to Israel stockpile without normal congressional notifications, as long as the US combat readiness isn't compromised. So this bypasses Congress, and this most latest NDA extended that to January 2027. And again, from in these times, they say that a State Department official confirmed that to both in these times and Women's for Weapons Trade Transparency that Section 1275 has been invoked since October 7th to rush more PGMs to Israel. Again, this is in the midst of Biden asking for $14 billion in supplemental funding, but meanwhile, they've got all of this stockpile that has already been greenlit thanks to this passing. Precision-guided missiles, by the way, were responsible for the attack on October 31st on the Jabalia refugee camp. If you remember that, I think we have images or video from that, reportedly killing 195 people. So, yeah, that just passed right under the radar. Cenk, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but I can move on to Republicans.
Yeah, so real quick, yes, so now it's being reported, we're gonna talk more about it later in the show, that Israel's dropped over 29,000 bombs, including unguided missiles, meaning basically indiscriminate killing of civilians. And apparently we are behind the scenes sending them, as you saw there, and I'm just going to quote it again, a limitless transfer of weapons, of the PGMs from the US reserve stocks. Limitless. So are they a foreign country or are they not? So do you have to actually pass bills that say we are going to fund that foreign country? Or does this country that is currently committing war crimes, that the whole world is reviled by their actions in Gaza, do you just get limitless access to our weaponry, which also means limitless access to our money? Because it's our taxpayer money that creates those bombs that we drop on Palestinian civilians' heads. This is an absolute outrage again, but no one in Washington is outraged because no one in Washington actually represents the American people.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.